What's going on, y'all? This is Isaiah Fowler, founder of SWAV Eyewear, SWAV Agency, and also the Starts With a Vision podcast, right? We are coming to you on audio podcasts, Google Play, all those platforms, and also on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, because that definitely helps us, and it lets me know, what episodes really hitting, really sticking. So I wanted to make this episode because I've realized that people just don't know like how to think about this part. So the episode is about when should I, try to get funding for my business, right? For growth. Not how do I fund my business, because that's a whole nother topic, but when should I? Because that's a different situation. So today we're gonna be talking about when should I, not how should I, right? And I'm gonna do a whole nother episode about how you can, but I want you to think about when. When should you be thinking about these things? You already know I like to talk about vision. Everything starts with a vision, right? So let's think about this. A lot of people, especially a product-based business, it's a lot different. So we see all these, companies raising millions, Series A, Series B, and stuff like that. But we need to always understand, like, what's really going on. It's easy to see an article and think we know what's going on, but we don't until you really kind of get in it. And so if you have a product-based business, you're gonna run into obstacles along the way, from 0 to 5 million to 10 million. There's always going to be problems. Now, the number one problem that every business is always going to be facing is cash flow. Cash flow is always going to be it, especially when you're trying to grow and scale. So number one, before we think about getting money for your business to grow, I want you to, number one, understand this. You have to understand that a business is not your savings account, okay? If you're trying to take this to the moon, you don't want to keep withdrawing from the business as if, you got this $1 million lifestyle. Your business is something that you use it as a tool to make money. You reinvest the money into the business so it can continue to rise, and then you take your payday at a later date, okay? Number one, that's the mentality that I speak from. I'm not the type I'm not talking about hustles. I'm not talking about, Turo and all this other stuff. I'm talking about if you got a product-based business and you trying to go from 0 to $500,000 to $1 million to $3 million to $5 million to $10 million, right? These are the things that I speak on. So that's number one. You got to understand that your business is not a savings account. So you have to, before we talk about money, you have to just get your emotions out of it, because emotions are going to get in the way of your business growing, right? So when you're going from like 0 to 100K, you can kind of get there really just by using your customers as your investors, right? When I do strategic intensives with clients, I'm always trying to find the missing money, right? Find the missing profit holes while still keeping the integrity of the brand intact, right? So let's think about this. You have a brand and you're at 60K. You need to go look inside of your customer base and see, how can I get money from this first? Creativity is going to really be your go-to thing, right? I'm used to growing businesses through creativity rather than just money, right? Because you could get money day one and just use that money to go up. But if you've never done that, or if you don't come from that, or if you don't have those opportunities, then we got to think about it a different way. And most people, they don't really have that opportunity, right? So from 0 to $1 million, you're really like, your business is non-existent in the business world. Once you hit like $1 million, $2 million, you're really in like startup mode, for real. That's when investors are probably going to be getting interested in you and stuff like that. You do a couple $100,000, ain't nobody really worried about you unless somebody knows you and knows what you got. But the market is the greatest equalizer, right? The market of customers that patronize from this business is going to prove what your business like can do. And that's what's going to make investors be interested in you. So before you, as you're thinking about how much, like, when am I going to need money for growth? You're going to also have to, number one, think about the infrastructure of your business. Is this a CPG brand, right? Is it a fashion accessories? Is it athleisure? Every company is going to be different because the higher the margins or the lower the margins, that's going to dictate things, right? If you have higher margins, you may not need as many people working if you're not making the product. But if you're making the product, you probably gonna need a lot more, and that money that you're gonna need is gonna go towards production and scaling out production, right? Depending on what product you're making. Let's say you're in the hair care, right? And let's say you have 10 people. You're gonna have to think about how much money am I gonna need to be able to produce the most amount with the least amount of labor costs going out, and labor just being the people that work for you and the people that are making that. What equipment are we going to need? So before you think about when do I get money, you really want to know how much money you're going to need. So if you haven't been operating your business for a couple years, you probably don't even fully know your business yet, and you don't even know how much money you're going to need. So you really want to allow your business to operate and start really looking at it and thinking of it. This is really about being able to kind of like create a vision for your future and see the future and then map it out and then follow this plan. And then things are going to like line up and start happening, right? So you need to know how much is labor going to cost me? How many people are working for me right now? How many products are they able to make? What are the materials I have? These different things, right? And also you're going to want to know how much am I going to need to get to where I want to go, right? Because you got to ask yourself, do I really want to try to take this thing to $50 million a year? Or do I only want the money so that I can get to $2 million and I can coast? Because that's going to be a different type of investor or a different type of money. If you just want to get to a couple $1 million a year, you're probably going to be okay with a private investor. But if you want to, really be able to take this, you probably going to get a private investor and then do crowdfunding and then get a Series A, right? But you also don't want to take too much money up front, because if you take any investment up front, you're putting yourself in a bad spot. You want to save that equity for as late as possible. And that's one thing that we call leverage. You want to keep your leverage as long as possible, because if you're doing a couple $100,000 a year, any investor that says they're going to invest into you, they're going to want more equity, because you haven't shown that your business can get to a certain level without anybody else yet. So they're going to be like, I want more equity because this is a bigger risk. But if you get to, 2, 3 million, 4 million kind of on your own, then it's like You may have a little bit more wiggle room and a little bit more leverage depending on your infrastructure, right? But usually around that $500,000 to $1 million, you're going to really have to start thinking about it, because you're going to be like, okay, what is my business going to need to get to the next level? A lot of times people grow faster than what they were thinking about, right? And if they grew faster than what they were thinking about, then it's like they didn't have the time to think about what they really needed. So you want to get in a habit of always running these analysis and things into your mind, right? Because it's very important that you're thinking about things before they happen. That's what strategy is. That's why it's so important. Because you're going to have to think about your cash flow, your labor, your marketing expenses, right? It's not just marketing and profit. You got to look at your balance sheet. You got to make sure your accountant is, doing everything that they need to do, so that when an investor does come, the financials are ready and the books are all good and clean, right? All these things matter. And that's why this video is so important. It's not a flashy video, but I never saw a video or an episode kind of talking about this for the entrepreneurs that have a direct-to-consumer brand, right? I didn't have resources like this, but that's why I'm making it, because I'm seeing it with my clients, right? So you're not in real startup mode until you're hitting, $1 million, 1.5. And then that's when it's most likely going to be time for you to make a move, because at that point, you're going to need money to really go. Because if you got to $1 million kind of just like on a whim, or, just off of the internet, you most likely don't have an infrastructure of a team. You're going to need an operations person. You're going to need to have your own marketing department, right? You're going to need to have your own, a finer production and fulfillment department, depending on what your product is, right? All those things matter. And I remember when I was younger, I used to be like, I ain't never want to take no investment. But at some point, you're going to need money to scale. Point blank, period. I used to be the person, I don't ever want that. But how you going to get to 100 million? How are you going to get to these big numbers without getting some investment? You're going to need it, but you want to time it properly. I feel like that's the most important thing. Time it properly. So if you can start thinking about it at a certain level, you'll be ready for the conversation when it comes, right? My content is not to give you an answer. My content is to make you think so that you can start unlocking thoughts in your mind so you can become the greatest version of yourself, right? Because the answer is there is no blueprint. There is no one way. There is no one answer. I did a whole episode about create your own blueprint, right? But if you could understand where you're at, go write down how much money you're going to need to get to whatever revenue, right? Let's say you're doing 400,000 right now. Go home, go in your office and write down how much money you're going to need on a monthly basis to get to 1.5 million, right? And then you'll start thinking about it and you'll start saying, okay, I'm going to need this amount of money. How much equity would somebody most likely want for this amount? And then we can start really troubleshooting and thinking about it on a deeper level. But this is only if you're really trying to take it to the moon. But if you're not and you want to just stay where you're at, I mean, that's fine. That's what you want to do, right? But the natural progression, if you're not growing, you're dying. That's how I look at it. So you never want to plateau or flatline, because if you're making $200,000 a year and you just stay there, eventually it's going to drop. You want to keep it going up, right? So if you could like 2x every year, conservatively, that's cool growth, right? But if you get a year where you 5x, and then another year where you 4x, and another year where you 3x, right? And then you 2x, you could be in a really, really, really good position. But at some point, you're going to need growth capital. Depending on if you took money up front in the beginning of your business or not, that's going to depend on if you need growth capital as well. But at some point, you're going to need growth capital, an insertion of cash to really take it to the next level. So it's really about, do you know how much you're going to even need to get to a level where you say you want? So before you think about how much or when do you need it, go write down what you're going to need and where you want to go. And be honest with yourself too. Don't say I want to build this $100 million brand and you're not really trying to do that, because it's going to stretch you. And some days you're going to be mentally exhausted and mentally tired from just thinking about these things. So really, really, really think about that. Sit down and ask yourself, how much am I really going to need to really take this to the next level? At some point, you're going to need some money. That's just how this world goes. So you can't run away from that, right? You're going to have to face that. So don't look at investors as bad or scary, because if you have it written down, you already halfway where you need to be. A lot of people are scared in life because they haven't written things down and they haven't faced things and addressed them. So why don't you address it right now? And that way you're more prepared for when things, happen and occur. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully it all made sense for you and I got your wheels turning and it made sense, right? So if you're rocking with this, leave a comment below. Share this with somebody, right? This could point somebody in the right direction on their journey of building their brand, their direct-to-consumer brand. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate your time. And always remember, everything you do in life starts with a vision, baby. Peace.